Now, Special Advisor, Special Duties, Communications and Strategy, Dele Alake, has described as fake news the viral story regarding purported 114% increase in the salaries of the President, the Vice President, elected federal and state political office holders, and judicial officers. In a press statement, Alake clarified that President Bola Tinubu has not approved any salary raise and no such proposal has been presented for consideration, emphasizing the danger of fake news. He urges journalists, media managers and the public to disregard stories on government activities and policy issues that do not come from approved official communication channels. Well, I have my guest analyst with me. Still have the current affairs analyst, professor of communications and deputy dean of the postgraduate school at Bayes University in Abuja, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi. And joining me is Kolawole Johnson. He's the head directorate of research, planning and strategy at the Act for Positive Transformation Initiatives. Good to see you, gentlemen, and thanks for your time. Let's start with you, Kolawole Johnson. You heard that story and it trended bigly, this again has brought to the fore the issue of fake news. But again, first, let's give us your perspective on how it's been with that particular piece of news, because some other official from that same arm did speak about it.
All right. You know that the media has been taken away from the traditional setting. And a lot of times you don't know what to believe because there are sources you can really verify things from. But when you have such a news item in the public space, the first 24 hours, and nobody's denouncing them, you will only give credence to them by leaving them in the space. And I think it was until the Labour Party candidate spoke that the government deemed fit to respond. I think so. Of course, we've been talking, people raised concern. You even found some supporters of the government kind of defending it that, it wasn't the choice of the president, but that of the body charged with that. But fact is, this government may need to also, sit up to act fast. Such must not go far because the mood of the nation, can't take that. You have fuel subsidy removal and some other decisions that are biting, hard on the people. And that such things like this, the people are going to respond, negatively. So I was expecting them to have denounced that before this day. I think it's been since 2 days ago. At first, the agency came out to say some few things, but we're expecting the government to denounce that in strong terms because of the mood of the nation. Of course, that is the hallmark of mood communication. When you understand that, you know what to allow to to trend in the space before you come in. That next time should not trend.
Well, Professor Adeniyi, this had happened before the composition or the appointment of essays on media to the president. One would have thought that there was a lacuna, but as it is now, at the moment, Mr. Alake has spoken.
Yeah, but government, it's very wide. Government is composed of not just the central government, but there are so many agencies, and none of them have their organizational line or chain, if you want. So sometimes you can see this kind of for power is not something that is never going to happen or that can never happen. What happens is what would you do? How would you respond to it? I thought they responded very well, but it came a little late, because ordinarily, looking at the story, you will know that it wasn't a sensible one against the background of the feeling, the groundswell of opinion in the country, or even the reality in the country, in the wake of the removal of oil subsidy. People were feeling pain, and of course, they are coming to say you are increasing the salaries of political office holders. I'm not sure any government would ordinarily have wanted that to happen. So it was an error, it's been corrected. But the point we also need to make is that this government is at a stage now, at the level of communication, they are the information dissemination stage. Simple dissemination of information. With this appointment has been made, that appointment has been made. This person has been dropped, this person has been replaced with the person that has been dropped. Simple communication. Very shortly, we expect them to move to the actual communication stage where they will begin to engage the populace, provide reasons, provide interpretations, and of course we too will now be joining them on some issues. And of course, after that, we also expect them to move to the conversation stage, But of course, if they are not fast in moving from one stage to the other, you'll be seeing this kind of a thing where they'll be caught, napping, as the case could be, because I do not believe that in a system like this, convoluted communication space, that Adeniyi Alake, as good as he is, as experienced as he is, as versatile as he is, I don't think he alone, can do the trick, because of course you could see that it took him time to respond, which means that by my own deduction, he will have been making contact with the agency just to get some further clarification so that he will not run into further errors. It was those clarifications that probably led him to responding a little late. So what we're saying in essence is that there are so many pieces in the communication jigsaw that should be filled, moving from the information stage to the communication stage and to the conversation stage. It should be filled as quickly as possible. Otherwise, they might be called napping, and they will be found on the defensive oftentimes instead of being at the proactive level, because we have seen governments in the past that had a very superb communication chain, communication network, superb dissemination process, conversational process, and there's no reason why this government should not be able to replicate that or even do better than these past governments that communicated well.
And Kolawole, he spoke, Professor Adeniyi spoke about speed, and let's stretch it further and also talk about the purveyors of such news, and put this side by side with what Alake has said, that they have avenues for you to clarify, double check with some of these communication managers of the government.
I think if you understand the fact that it wasn't generated by a stranger, it was a news item that it took from a verifiable personnel of
MEFC.
Yes. So note that people just picked that up, and if you judge them, from the content, if you do the content analysis, you can't blame the people, that are spreading that and asking the right question. However, just like he said, very sure that Mr. Adeniyi was only trying to double check, but if they had responded before that time, they wouldn't allow that, to gestate and end the anger of the people. However, in strategic communication too, there are times you take your time, but not all of the time. You're not even expected to respond, to all news items. Perhaps they were just ignoring that because they felt it wasn't true. However, I was expecting them to use the same agency, not just to denounce, but to put the proper thing out there that, we haven't submitted these to the government. In any case, I would have also, gone ahead to have a scapegoat there. Let the man also be questioned somehow, to give the people the assurance that this was not the case, because it is possible for government to have this step, but as soon as they saw that the people reacted, and that was withdrawn. Very possible. But when you use the same the same people, not just to denounce, but to withdraw the news item and set the record straight, people may likely believe you. However, you understand that you have a case of a people who are still angry. So whatever they get as of course, they will want to run with that very quickly. Maybe that will be why the government will sit up more, and do better next time. But you can't really blame them. It's the honeymoon stage. They will soon get past this. Get past this stage, and serious questions will be asked.
Okay, Professor Adeniyi, I caught you there nodding for a bit, and he said by now someone should pay the price, or someone should feel the heat from such a body to have actually given out that unverified news.
Yeah, I think he was very reasonable with that statement. But we also have to understand that we're in the 21st century world of revolution in communication. Information is upon us, it's in the hand of everybody, and of course, I don't want to use the word every Tom, Dick and Harry, practically every citizen that has a smartphone can be a disseminator of information, which means that for you to counter that, you need a bit of strategic communication, that he said. And of course, communication is essentially increasingly scientific. You do not joke with it. And
sorry, but he raised a point there that well, it actually emanated from our MAFC.
No, I'm coming to that.
Right,
it's increasingly scientific, and the science of it does not rest only with the equipment, but of course with the person, with the human element, and that is disseminating it. Now you have maybe one official that probably has no background in information, has some facts. There are some facts in what was said, really, if you look at it critically. But probably it's okay. He probably thought that, if that statement was released, it was going to be harmless. But if you had an expert, making that kind of statement or seeing that information before him or her, there will have been a greater level of care, releasing it, knowing that it was going to have a backlash, because it's not, communication is not a unilateral thing. It is an embodiment of a whole lot of things. The other things were not considered. We're just looking at the raw data before you, or the law that was before you, the regulation, the expectation, and you dish it out, forgetting that it has implication. And what about the mood of the nation, as the case ordinarily still is? That those ones were not considered, and that's why we had this backlash. The point we're making is, much as we're talking about the injection of technocrats in sections of government, the aspect of communication should not also be undermined, because it crisscrosses all dimensions of our life, and governments have failed in the past because of the failure of communication. And of course, we expect that the Bola Tinubu administration, with all he did in Lagos, with the expertise around him, with his pedigree, the ones that have been celebrated and otherwise, it shouldn't be the one that is making this mistake, even at an earlier stage, irrespective of what I said earlier, that they are still at the simple dissemination of information stage, trying to settle down, or what my colleague called the honeymoon stage. We expect, it's okay to say that he has hit the ground running, but he can also run without necessarily hitting the ground.
So in other words, we're yet to see the strategic aspect of the Alake and his team. But again, it's a fine place for us to leave it tonight and say thank you for being such nice company, Kolawole Johnson and Professor Abiodun Adeniyi. Well, that's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Do join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja. It's goodbye and thanks for watching.